Welcome to Traditional Dad Podcast number 7. Today we've got JP. What part of America are you from, JP?
I live in Montana.
Montana, cool. We've got JP from Montana. He's going to explain a bit about what he does. He's broken his foot, so he's in a bit of a sticky situation at the moment where he can't do much. But we're going to talk about co-parenting today because I know a lot of dads are going to get a lot of value from this and a lot of golden nuggets because you do this as a sideline, don't you? You work with co-parenting parents. I know you do. You've got your main job, but one of your side hustles is actually helping co-parents try and figure it all out and try and work out, which I'm really excited to hear about because I've been on the other end many years ago, and I know how frustrating, angry we can get as dads. So let's start at the very beginning. Introduce yourself, what you do, how old you are, and your family setup.
I am 41. I live in eastern Montana, which is rural. I mean, I live in a town of 6,000 people.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's probably not a city bigger than like 50,000 people within 100 square mile radius of me.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like you're driving, you're going a ways before you're getting to a city for sure.
Yeah.
41. I have a 9-year-old daughter. She's about to turn 10. We've been doing the co-parenting. We split up right after she turned 2. So, better part of 7-8 years.
Yep.
First couple of years, you had your high conflict, a lot of fighting, a lot of all that stuff. And then the last 7+ years, it's been collaborative. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which has a lot to do with many variety of things.
Yep. Which
will go. My daughter's in a blended family with her mom. But it's a deal at this point. I mean, we have a loosely based schedule.
Yep.
She comes and goes as she pleases.
Yeah.
Because we're able to be the way that we are. Mom, she's grounded at dad's. She can't have her tablet there. She doesn't have her tablet here. That the food's about the same, responsibilities are the same. So we don't get pitted. You know what I mean? There's no competition between oh, well, dad lets me be on my tablet 24 hours a day. Mom only lets me be on it for an hour and a half. I want to go to dad's house. You know what I mean? Like, we don't play into that.
Yeah.
And then, in my situation, we do the summer barbecues together. We do the holidays a lot of times together, depending on if somebody's traveling or not. The school functions, the sports deals, you know what I mean? And this is like me, my daughter, her mother, stepdad, stepbrother,
wow,
his ex-wife, her husband, and their baby.
Wow.
And then some other families that we're all, interconnected with and that kind of stuff. But like,
so
it's not weird because nobody makes it weird.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, because I'm going to come from I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit. I guess you wasn't. It took a lot of work to get to that moment or get to this point. Because I know a lot of dads, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's great for him, it works for him, but right now I'm in this situation, we're not getting on. So let's rewind a bit. Up until the moment you broke up with your child's mother, what was the relationship like? Let's get a good background of where we're going from and how it happened and what happened to then get to the point of going your separate ways.
It was just, I mean, we were unmarried.
Yeah.
So it was a breakup, not necessarily a divorce with all of the added,
yeah, of course,
who gets this and separates this and that,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there wasn't and I mean, like any other scenario, the less that you can have your court systems, government involvement, better off you're going to be, because 2 people can figure it out a lot easier than 5 people plus a judge deciding who's right, who's wrong.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty, I would say, fun-loving. We both went out on the weekends. We were both, didn't have any kids.
Yep.
We got together, went out on the weekends, drank and hung out, and we're really social and all these different things. And then once my daughter was born, my priorities changed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The whole, like, make our house a home, work on the house, build a deck, but also I was working, I work in construction. And so like I could be gone 13 hours a day with drive time if I'm driving a long ways and this and that. And then you're gone all week.
Yeah.
So when weekends came around, I wanted to be home with my family.
Yeah.
She'd been cooped up all week. So then that caused a lot of tension. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it just, everything kept snowballing, and it just getting to a place where you're not coming back from it. You know what I mean?
So it drifted. I suppose you both drifted away because you wanted different things.
Right.
And so the relationship drifted away, which can easily happen, can't it?
Right.
And if you're working lots of hours, she's getting cooped up with the child. You come at the weekend, you want to do family stuff. She's like, I want to go out and party because I've had the kids I've had the little one all the time.
Right.
Blah, blah. And I suppose then that caused a lot of resentment, imbalance, and all that. And then obviously that led then to the marriage, well, the breakup. Would you say then?
Right. Right.
Okay,
right.
cool. So at that age, then you've got this 3-year-old, yeah?
Right.
Okay. So then, because I'm always interested, because once the breakup happens, that's when usually the resentment. Now, I know you do this as a job. So what would you say is, what happened to you first? And then how would you say the best way to handle it would be?
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the, the anger, animosity, the shame, sometimes the hurt feelings, the feeling, betrayed, or, whatever baggage that you're dragging around from any failed relationship.
Yeah.
So until you deal with it, let the relationship die, grieve it, and move forward, just like any other day.
Yeah.
You're going to be stuck in those feelings. And I was, I'm not any different than anybody else, because like I was instantly defensive all the time. And I was you know what I mean? And it's easy to get triggered without knowing what your triggers are. And it's easy to push it. You know how to push the other person's buttons too, to trigger them. And so it's easy to be so caught up in these feelings and see everything through the lens of anger or, shame or hurt feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
To where, a lot of the issue with us, on my end was I would get a text from her, and instead of it being something that now I respond, you know what I mean? Then I was reacting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was seeing it through this other lens of, you know what I mean? So then I would poke back. And then you got two people throwing gas on a fire, and the fire ain't going to go out. It's just going to get bigger. You know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah.
So then you let that bottle up for a week.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's going to be this huge like explosion.
No, I totally
when you do got to talk.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what a lot of dads, and it's hard not to as a dad, isn't it? Because let's say you've got a lot of anger, you've got a lot of frustration, bitterness, resentment. It's hard to respond and not react, isn't it? And so what you tend to do, like you said, you react through a lens that causes then friction, tension, and then they respond back, and it just goes back and forth. Now looking back, what would you say the best way to deal with it would be?
I mean, I tell everybody that they need to leave their own pity party, because nobody fucking cares.
I like that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're dragging around all this baggage that's tethering you to a failed relationship, you're not able to move forward and see the other person as the other parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of it's language, some of it's the way that you think, the way that you talk, the way that you perceive the other person. But like one thing I get people to think about or to try, and then everybody's like, holy shit, like, why does that make a difference? Is like, I never refer to my daughter's mother as my ex.
Yeah.
Because that's not who she is in this reality anymore. She's my daughter's mother.
Yeah.
And we're raising my daughter. You know what I mean? If you want to stay stuck in these feelings and be stuck last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, in that, state,
that era,
because your body's going to keep you there, and your mind will keep you there. And so like, and even if you're just talking, like, if like even us talking right now, like your facial expression when I say my daughter's mother, as opposed to when I would say if I called her my ex over and over and over, it just comes with that cloud, and then everybody's energy changes and shifts. And so once you can kind of get out of your own way and stop, you know what I mean, and accepting the new reality, as opposed to trying to white knuckle your past reality. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
your new reality is you're a single father. She's a single mother.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are raising a child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
not your ex. You're not her ex.
Yeah.
You are you're the parent,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And so
And so
once you can kind of,
sorry, I just want to quickly, because I
yeah,
don't want to move on too quick. Why do we automatically just start saying X? What's the thinking behind that? Is it because we're still angry, we're still in a relationship, we're still used to that, so we then start saying, "Oh, yeah, my ex or my kid's mom," and all this? What
right.
what's the reason for us holding on to that so tight?
Fear of change, not accepting what reality is at this point in
Totally.
time. I would
Yeah,
guess probably is a lot of it.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'd
Like,
suggest the fear of change is one a big one.
yeah. And not, you know, if you can, if you're, if you're still holding on to them as this idea,
Mm-hmm.
then you're still holding on and grasping at this illusion of control that you may
Yeah,
have had in your relationship of being able to dictate what goes on at their house or who they interact with or
yeah,
who they're allowed to date or what they're allowed to do when you have your kids and they have the free
yeah,
weekends off.
yeah,
And the more that you're holding on to this old dynamic instead of embracing the new reality,
yeah.
you're kind of split between two. And it's hard to really it's hard to really live in one when you're kind of split between two.
Yeah, yeah. You can't move on, can you? You can't move on, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think
And then
so. Go on.
you get a lot of conflict coming out of that
Yeah,
because then you get the double standards, you get the high conflict situations and the nosiness and the trying to control the other person, what they can do, what they can't do, what
yeah.
da 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 da. And it's like,
It's
you
a whole
know,
new
you
game.
only get so much say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what comes with the situation, isn't it? Once you've gone your separate ways, and once you've gone you're not together anymore, you only get so much say, don't you, over
Right.
each other's lives then. And I do think you bang on the money when you say men find it hard then to not have that control. Because let's
Right.
be real, you've been in a relationship where you've had the control, you've had your say, they've listened, whether they've liked it or not. And depending on what traditions you and values you hold, will then determine how much your partner respects you and all that sort of thing and listens to you.
Right.
So going from that then to not having a say, not having a an opinion and being listened to, that can then cause a lot of anger and frustration, can't it, as well?
Right. And fear. I mean, even if it's a situation where you're talking, you know, a traditional household sort of dynamic, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? You got your, you know, the provider, protector
Mm-hmm.
instinct of the man who was the man of the house, who
Yeah.
was the leader of the relationship,
Yeah.
who you know had all the decision making for the children or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Now that's not your reality anymore. You have no say so of what they're doing. And you also have to sort of loosen your grip because you're not doing the providing and the protecting in that home anymore as much. And so
Yeah.
they get to make their own decisions. And if it's a deal where, you know, you're looking at it from the lens of, you know, I wouldn't make that decision, you
Yeah.
can't be upset that they're making a decision that you wouldn't make because it's not your place.
True.
And then
Totally.
when you overstep, then they get mad because you're overstepping
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're going to get a lot of back and forth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You kind of have to go from this was my life, this is my family, this is mine,
Mm-hmm.
into a more kind of pulled back thought process and start treating, you know, the other parent as like a family member, a sister, cousin,
Yeah.
instead of my wife who I'm providing protecting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're not going to step in and do that for a cousin or a sister,
Yeah.
that's about the lengths of your involvement. You know what I mean? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Cool. Yeah. Totally makes sense. And so what I'm hearing is basically the quicker you can, in your own mindset,
Mhm.
determine that, right, I have no more control. I don't really have much say on her as a mother, but I can on my
Right.
child. And the quicker you can move on from that, the quicker you can start the process of really healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the bottom line of it all?
Yeah. Right.
Okay, cool. So how would you, what's the number one factor in then dads, if they want to move on, not, I don't want to say quick, but if they want to start the process of healing, I know you talk a lot about journaling, you talk about support, music, audiobooks and meditation and things like that and being mindful. What's the number one thing, or maybe your top three things in helping dads heal over this situation?
Focusing on the things that you can control as
Yeah.
opposed to worrying about shit that is out of your control is a big one, because if you want to stay stuck, sit around and worry about what they're doing all day, sit around and worry about who they're dating all day, sit around and worry about shit that you have no control over,
Yes.
and you can be as stuck as humanly possible. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things that'll keep you stucker than anything on the planet, is worrying about and trying to do something about things that you have no control over.
Yeah.
Educate yourself, you know what I mean? But work on yourself to where you're okay being alone, and that doesn't translate to you being lonely.
Yes. Because a big
Because
difference.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge difference. And it's a deal where, and I mean, none of it's easy. And, the more history you have, the harder it's going to be, and this and that. But like, don't look at everything through the lens of the perfect house that you lost.
Yep.
And see the entire picture. You know what I mean? It's easy to get wrapped into all the good memories, all the good holidays, looking at the pictures where everybody looks happy and all these different things, and disregarding all of the not so good stuff.
Yeah.
Like, see it all for what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you focus too much on the bad stuff, then obviously that's not very good for your mental health either. But pining over something that wasn't actually real isn't going to allow you to move on.
Yeah.
And be present, you know what I mean? Like, work on yourself and be okay with yourself and find your hobbies again, find what makes you happy. You know what I mean? Because you can't really just jump into another relationship, because if you're not healed, you're going to be bleeding all over somebody that didn't cut you.
Very
You know
true.
what I mean?
I like
or
that.
you're going to be dependent on them to try to make you happy, and that's not really their job either.
I like that, man. I like that. So let's talk about, because I know you've worked through this and you've got to a point now where you're in I suppose in a happier situation where you're able to accept it. But I know there's going to be a lot of dads where this is affecting their mental health. I know it's going to be affecting, because like you just said about being stuck. And I think there's a lot of dads that become stuck. They become lonely. They've lost their purpose because it was their children, or it was their family, or they thought it was. And because let's be real, we say it's our purpose, but then sometimes when we're in a relationship, we don't act like it is. So that's a different ball game in itself. So what practical tools can dads start to do in order for them to move out of being stuck, creating mental health issues where anxiety kicks in, depression kicks in, loneliness kicks in? What can dads actually do while they're going through this co-parenting stage?
Mindfulness was a big one for me.
Yeah.
The having habits,
Yeah.
healthy routines, having a morning routine, afternoon routine, workout routines. You know what I mean? Worry about your diet. Worry about your exercise. I mean, if your body's healthy, your mind's going to follow. I keep a gratitude journal.
Yep.
So when I wake up in the morning, I'll journal, 100 plus thousand people died last night. I woke up. One thing that helped me a lot was putting things in perspective, like small mental shifts, but really put things in perspective. It's like, I stopped saying have to.
Yep.
I have to pick up my daughter after work tonight, or I have to go to her dance recital. Like, I don't say shit like that anymore, because I get to, because I'm gracious enough and I have enough gratitude to understand that there's a lot of guys that would love to be late for work because they had to take their kids to school, or would love to have to pick their kids up from school, or would love to go to the dance recitals or barbecues or school, Christmas concerts or, whatever the case may be that don't get to, you know what I mean? And so focusing on the things that are going well will continue to build on things that are going to get better, as opposed to, you get what you focus on.
Of course.
So if you're going to focus on all the negative stuff around you and how horrible everything is, nothing gets better because you're only going to see the bad.
Yes.
But if you can focus on all the good and be thankful for what you do have, what you do get, and show up for yourself. You know what I mean? If you set your alarm for X time, don't hit the snooze button. Show up for yourself. Make that small win every day. Make your bed. Do the dishes as you dirty the dishes and get done eating food. Vacuum the house. The cleaner your house is, the cleaner your life's going to be. I mean, these little things will get you unstuck and get you moving forward.
So we're looking
take
for
pride in your appearance.
We're looking for momentum, aren't we? We're looking to really start stacking wins, as we call it in our coaching thing. So we're stacking habits, we're stacking wins. We're looking for momentum, even no matter, like you say, making the bed to then going for a 20-minute walk. Little wins along the way that start stacking up.
Yeah, and if you get more wins than losses, you'll feel better every day.
Of course,
you know what I mean. And not comparing yourself to others is a big thing that I think people need to understand how horribly toxic and bad mental health, mentally it's not good for you, because compare yourself to yesterday. And that's the only comparison you need, because everybody else is on a different journey dealing with different things and has different motivations, priorities, outlooks, da 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 da. You know what I mean? There's no keeping up with the Joneses and this and that. And then, getting support, because your family in camp is going to always say that you're not doing anything wrong, and it's always the other person. And their family in camp is doing the exact same thing. So if you can find somebody that will tell you the truth, you know what I mean? Your mom's not going to tell you necessarily the truth.
Your mom's not going to say you're being a dickhead, is she?
Right. Your mom's not going to be like, you're the fucking problem. Quit being the fucking problem. I mean, my mom would, but
most moms wouldn't know.
Don't have that. Right. And like, whether it be whatever you need to do, you know what I mean? If you wake up, if you start to feel your mental health going down in a day, or you wake up and you're not in a good mood or something like that, like open your Spotify, create a playlist of songs that always cheer you up. Put that playlist on, because if you're sad and you feel like listening to sad music and you put on sad music, it's just going to keep bouncing off, ping pong and make you sadder and sadder and sadder, because it's not going to get you out of that. You know what I mean? So living with intention, just paying attention to your surroundings, what you're listening to, who you're talking to, who you're getting advice from. You know what I mean? Don't take advice. If you're getting advice from a happy married couple about your co-parenting problems, it's probably not the best people to get advice from, because they don't have a fucking clue what you're going through. You know what I mean?
They can't imagine.
Right. You're not going to take business advice from somebody that's never owned a business.
Exactly.
Or you're not going to take fitness advice from somebody that's out of shape and has no fitness routine. So be aware of who you're accepting advice from. You know what I mean?
Totally. So let's just rewind a bit. So I want to do a bit of recapping, because it's easier for the audience to understand. So I think a lot of men, and correct me if I'm wrong, is once they come out of the relationship where they start co-parenting, there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of fear, which I'm getting from, and I suppose that fear is from both sides, the man and the woman side, which then gets each other's backs up, because we start operating on emotions, and when we start operating emotions, things go terribly wrong. We say things we don't mean and stuff like that. So that's what tends to happen. And then as the process carries on, men then can start to become, and I think this is where the mental health side comes in, men start to become lonely, they start to become stuck, they start to then think about negativity things and holding on to negative. They start reminiscing usually about how good life was, and the reality is it wasn't that good, because it wouldn't have got to where it was in the first place. And then I suppose then from then you're talking about, if you really want to get out of feeling stuck, and if you really want to start leveling up and setting a tone for yourself and setting some standards for yourself and start operating on a different energy and vibrations, then you got to start acting differently as well. So start doing some journaling in the morning, start doing some walks or start listening to some good positive music, surrounding yourself with positive men that have been through what you've been through. Not again hanging around with people that just go yes for the fucking sake of it, or your mom that goes, oh, you're the
Right.
best kid in the world. Actually hang around, support around people that know what you're going through, but also will tell you straight.
Right. Right.
Okay. So after all that's happened, how do dads get to the point where they can sit in the same room? Because I'm just thinking of more so that many dads that I've spoken to, that are angry and they're still operating on fear, they're still operating on frustration. I know the answer to this, but I really want the audiences to get the answer from yourself. How do they get from then being able to go from operating on fear, anger, resentment, then to operating on, okay, I've done some work on myself, to sitting in a room or just being amicable?
Kill them with kindness.
I love it. Kill him with kindness.
Don't be the person. Don't be the person that they're going to expect you to be. Like, I mean, like, that's an old expression, and it fits, and it's been around forever because it works. And I mean, I'm not saying like don't have an opinion. I'm not saying don't stand up for yourself. I'm not saying get railroaded or anything like that, or sit there and be a mute and be afraid to talk. But let them, you know what I mean. You can be an emotionally intelligent and emotionally controlled man, and put on a smile, because that's what you're expected to do your entire life. You've been doing it your whole life.
Yep.
Man up. Don't show, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and
totally.
but at the same time, if you're not, be aware of what's going on, be aware of your own actions, be aware of your own emotions, and don't be the instigator for stupid shit that doesn't fucking matter just to throw a fit. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if that's them, don't engage.
Yeah.
If you stop giving them the reaction that they're looking for, sooner or later, I mean, little by little, they're going to quit looking for it because they're not getting it.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
when they quit getting it, then they stop looking for it. And then that's when you can start doing better with communication and having discussions about certain things, and start setting boundaries and start talking about, all these different things. But if if you're letting them trigger you and everything turns into these big fights, you're not going to get anywhere.
No.
And so you kind of have to, not necessarily sit there and let them berate you or anything in public or anything like that. But there's nothing that says that you need to sit there and take it.
True.
So if you got a school, you know what I mean? And I think one of the things, and especially with the guys that I talk to and the men and stuff like that, is you get a lot of this. Well, I know that she's bad mouthing me around the kids, and I know that she's bad mouthing me to the school, and I know that she's bad mouthing me to her friend. But fucking who gives a shit?
Yes.
You know what I mean? What's louder than her words is going to be your actions.
Yep.
If you're never late to school functions, you're at every soccer game, you're at every school function, you're at every birthday party, you're at everything. Never late on drop off pickups. Never, you're always there, always there, always there. It doesn't matter what they say. The school is going to see you as the involved active parent who is always there.
Yep.
And has their emotions under control and isn't flying off the handle and getting into these petty fights in front of like school teachers and principals and stuff like that. So, my point is to all these guys is like, they can say whatever the fuck they want, but your actions are going to show everybody around you who's fucking crazy and who's really the one that's high conflict.
And
you know what I mean? Like, so it's sort of one of those deals, but you have to be able to recognize when you're starting to get heated, to not fall into these traps,
Totally. And I suppose it's another thing as well. Like, instead of, it's great doing it so the school see that you're taking action and people outside can go, well, she's saying this, but actually she's like this. But also it's what your child sees, isn't it, as well?
Right.
It's what your child actually sees, because the mom can say as much as she wants about who the person you are, but the child will see and base their decisions on how you act as a dad. And it doesn't matter if they're 3, 4, 5, or 6, as they grow up. If you're being true to yourself and you're still acting with values and high standards and showing that for your actions, they will make their own judgment in the end.
Right. And I mean, even doing it in all aspects, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if my daughter was to grow up and say her mom would always badmouth me and everybody on, you know, and her stepdad was always, everybody was always throwing me under the bus and talking shit and talking shit and talk shit. But but you know, her entire childhood growing up with me never heard me say a bad word about anybody.
Yeah, yep.
Like, I don't need to stoop to their level.
No,
you know what I mean?
no.
I don't care what people think about me. The only person then on the planet that I cares, whose opinion matters to me, is my daughters. Like, everybody else can eat shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think we can get so caught up, can't we? In, like you've mentioned it before, we get so caught up in looking on social media and what everyone's doing and looking at what the kids' moms doing and all this sort. We get so caught up in I call it noise. We get so caught up in this
Right.
noise when the reality is all that matters is that, number one, you're doing the best version of yourself possible. So doing the work, doing the emotional work, doing the mental health work so you can move forward, and also doing the work for your children. That's what matters the most, because the noise will always be there, whether you like it or not. And,
right.
and it's just literally finding yourself and finding your strengths and knowing how strong and building your strengths up so you can be the dad. And I think one of the things that you said at the beginning, which is the big takeaway, is control what you can.
Right.
Because we try and control other things which we can't, and then we get frustrated because we can't.
Right. And you know, one thing that I have been intentional about and mindful about, and I try to make sure that, like, the people I talk to and work with and stuff like that, that they understand the same thing, is like I have a daughter, I don't have a son, right? I just have one daughter. But my daughter, when she grows up, is going to gravitate towards whatever type of man I am presenting to her.
Truth.
And so, do I want her to be with an emotionally erratic, drunk, flies off the handle, toxic, abusive, you know, hot-headed piece of shit, or a confident, well-spoken, hardworking? You know what I mean? Like, you are the model of what your daughter is probably going to look for and think values and characteristics and morals in their future relationships. But also, if I had a son, do I want you know what I mean? Same thing. He's going to mirror your actions, behaviors. And so if you're talking shit about women, i.e. their mom, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's
is that socially acceptable? Is that acceptable behavior for an adult? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Then, you know, you just raised your kid to sit there and belittle his own wife and stuff like that. Like,
definitely. I think that's the truth bomb right there, isn't it? That is the fundamental factor in all this, that your child is going to base on the blueprint that you show.
Right.
And so when they grow up, they're going to base, if you've got a daughter, they're going to base it on what the men is like, is on you. If you've got a son, they're going to act on what you were like. So you're just setting the blueprint to how they view what they see. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. And that then really, if we think like that, that then should manifest in how we then act, how we then become, what we do on our next few steps in order to become more better at co-parenting, shouldn't it, really?
Right. And I mean, you know, and then you know, I know what the comments or what a lot of guys are going to think is like, well, that's easy for somebody that gets a lot of time with their kids. You know what I mean? Like, I am lucky, and I know that I'm lucky. You know, I have more time with my daughter than 99% of the guys that are trying to do the co-parenting thing. You know what I mean? Like 6-8 days a month, if you're lucky, is a lot of guys' reality.
Of course.
But like, the quality of your time is going to make a bigger difference than the quantity of your time.
Totally. Yeah.
So if you're intentional and you're aware and you're involved, that means that makes a bigger difference than, you know what I mean? And I mean, obviously everybody wants more time with their kids. Like,
of course.
It is, that's the reality of it. But show up to all the sporting events, show up to all the school stuff if you can. I mean, I understand that people work and a lot of people aren't super flexible with their jobs and all that stuff, or they're long distances apart. You know what I mean? And there's all these scenarios and situations. And
but ideally,
like, if you can be there.
Yeah.
And when you are there, don't just be a shadow in the top back corner of the dance of the auditorium during dance. You know what I mean? Be down there, you know, like, go to the concerts, go to the deals. You know what I mean? Be
Yeah,
there.
of course.
And if you're there, you're there. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and it means the world.
totally. Mate, I appreciate your time in this because I think there's so many things that we can learn from you. One thing I want to do is where can dads get hold of you? Because I really feel that you've got a lot to offer, and I know you do it as a coaching. So where can dads get hold of
Instagram.
you? Okay.
Everything I do with coaching and stuff is usually through Instagram
What's your
because
handle? What's your
it's
handle on Instagram?
JPMRSH.
At JPMRSH. So, guys, if you're looking out for someone that you want to talk to and get some experience and some knowledge and some consultations, hit JP up on Instagram. I appreciate your honesty, mate, because I
Yeah.
know we're in this support group together already, but you do this on the side. But I just really appreciate it. And I think there's a lot more we can delve into on this topic.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we're going to do a series, mate. If I'm honest with you, we need to do a series on this because I think it's really important that we get across because this is the biggest factors why dads fail. Is around co-parenting and stuff like that. So, and I don't want to talk all our audience heads off. And I think if we put it into segments, it's going to be a lot easier to digest rather than doing that.
Right.
So we'll get you back on the podcast to talk about other avenues regarding co-parent. But until now, mate, JP, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I know, man. Until next time, we're going to do another one. We'll see you next time. Cheers, JP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.